Congressman John Garamendi is joining us right now from California. He was just recently in South Korea visiting U.S. troops. So what's your reaction to this story in the Washington Post? And for viewers here in the United States and around the world, Congressman, who are just tuning in, the Washington Post now reporting that North Korea has successfully produced a miniaturized nuclear warhead that can fit inside its missiles. It cites a DIA, a Defense Intelligence Committee assessment that North Korea has produced nuclear weapons for ballistic missile delivery, to include delivery by ICBM-class missiles. Congressman, your reaction?
Obviously very serious, but not unexpected. We have known for some time this is where North Korea wanted to go. We didn't anticipate they'd be there quite this fast. Obviously, this dovetails with their intercontinental ballistic missile program. It is serious, but at the same time, it's not. This is an opportunity and really a necessity for us to take a deep breath and to figure out what a long-term comprehensive strategy has to be put in place. The elements are all there. The UN resolution, extremely important because it brings China and Russia and the other members of the Security Council in lockstep to put pressure on North Korea. We have to let that mature. Also, Secretary of State Tillerson opened the door to negotiations, starting with no preconditions, and then it seems as though a precondition has been added, and that had to do with the continuation of the ballistic missile technology.
Well, let me stop you on that. Let me stop you on that
Sure.
front, because as you know, Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, was just in Manila for this this summit of Asian countries, Pacific leaders. The North Korean foreign minister was there as well. The North Korean foreign minister met with the foreign minister of South Korea, met with the foreign minister of Russia, did not meet with Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State. Was that a missed opportunity, in your opinion?
No, not at all. The opportunity was that previously the foreign minister of North Korea didn't talk to anybody. But now those discussions are underway, circling around the United States, not yet involved. But the opportunity to get serious discussions underway appears to be in the offing, and that's what we have to pursue. We also need to understand and try to figure out exactly what it is that North Korea wants. It appears in all cases that North Korea wants to assure their the continuation of the Kim Jong-un regime. This is the third generation.
They also say, Congressman, the North Korean statements that have come out over the past few days, they will never give up their nuclear weapons program. They're not going to walk away from this at all. They're basically telling all the countries in the region, including the United States, live with it.
Well, we're not about to live with it, nor is China, Russia, Japan, and the neighboring communities. Let's be clear here. That nuclear threat is as much a threat to in fact, more of a threat to the surrounding neighbors than it is to the United States. We do have a missile defense system that would be effective against North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missiles. The neighborhood does not. And so everybody in that region has the same interest. That is to prevent North Korea from having and then utilizing their nuclear weapons. So we're all in this game together. And that's extremely important, because that then leads to the kind of negotiations that we have to engage North Korea on. Will they give up their nuclear weapons? That's why you negotiate, to find if there is a way to achieve that. There are many ways, and Secretary Tillerson said it well. We're not into regime change. That's important. In any negotiation, that sets one of the things that are on the table for future discussion.
Congressman, so when administration officials say the president has all options available, all options are on the table right now, you're an expert in this area. You've been to the region several times. Do you really believe that the military option, a preemptive military strike against North Korea, is realistic?
Well, it's certainly the very last thing you ever want to do, because it will set off a huge, devastating war in that region that might very well involve nuclear weapons. It would certainly be a major major problem, a disaster really, if we ever have to go that way. That's why these sanctions are extremely important in that they do put pressure on North Korea. Obviously, it caused Kim Jong-un to come out with what are some very wild, extreme statements about wiping out the United States. Well, first of all, there's no way he can wipe out the United States. He can certainly cause a lot of problems, more to the neighborhood than to the United States. And therein lies, I think, the reason that China, Russia, and others are saying, okay, enough. We've got to get this under control. And we must do so. A major war on the Korean Peninsula is the very last thing anybody wants, and certainly it would be the end of the Kim Jong-un family regime. They would be overdone, finished, and don't exist anymore. Of course, there would be extraordinary casualties and problems for South Korea and quite probably for the neighborhood. That's why we want to get to the negotiating table. That's why the UN sanctions are extremely important. That's why the sanctions that the Congress of the United States put before the President, and the President signed it reluctantly, but nonetheless did sign those sanctions. All of that is part of the process of getting to the negotiating tables, backing North Korea away from its nuclear weapons and its intercontinental ballistic missiles. Of course, we should expect, before those negotiations ever begin, for North Korea to say, no way, no how will we give them up. But that's why you sit down at the table. That's why you negotiate from strength.
Very quickly, final question, Congressman. The Washington Post reporting that North Korea already may have as many as 60 nuclear bombs in its arsenal. 60 nuclear bombs. Have you heard that before?
We've heard numbers varying from that number downward. The actual number we don't know. The number of miniaturized weapons, we don't know that number either. The fact that a miniaturized nuclear weapon may be or is in existence or may be in existence is important. But let's keep in mind that this is not an imminent threat to the United States, in that there are other steps that they will have to have. We've talked already on your program about the reentry issue. But keep in mind that for the neighborhood, you don't need a reentry issue. You can use the ballistic missiles, the shorter range, and put China, Russia, Japan, and the neighborhood at threat. And I think that's why we're seeing the neighborhood getting engaged in a way that they were not previously engaged. And certainly they would be at the negotiating table also. So let's understand the seriousness of this. Let's make sure that we have a comprehensive, rational policy that's out there available, that's not only available but in place, and included in that, as you said a moment ago, are all options. The last option, we don't want to ever have to get there, would be to take out those nuclear facilities, which would be extremely difficult to do, and would almost certainly end or lead to a major conventional and possibly nuclear conflict on the Korean Peninsula and in the neighborhood.
Yeah, let's not forget the capital of South Korea, Seoul, is only 20 or 30 miles south of the demilitarized zone. North Korea, just north of the DMZ, has 1 million troops with thousands of pieces of artillery and mortars, conventional weapons as they're called, which clearly could level that South Korean capital. There are still 28,000 U.S. troops south of the DMZ as well. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. All right.